Good Monday morning, everyone. It's time for your Monday blessing. Here we are a few weeks into the new series, Picture It. And today I want to talk about how that God's picture for your life is always bigger and better than the one that you have. And so I want to ask you this: what do you see for your life? Do you see a small picture or do you see a big one? You know, prior to Abraham having his son Isaac, all Abraham saw was Sarah, his wife's barrenness. He saw the fact that they were childless. But during that time, God comes to Abraham and he begins to share with Abraham his picture for his life. And it's completely opposite of what Abraham and Sarah saw. God saw them conceiving not just one child, but having many, many descendants. God saw them with a big family, but they saw themselves with a very small one. In Genesis 15, verse 5, in the Message version, it says, "Then he, God, took Abram outside and said, 'Look at the sky, count the stars. Can you do it? Count your descendants. You're going to have a big family, Abram.'" When Abraham received his God picture that day, because God showed it to him, he had a choice to either believe it or to not believe it. And we know that Abraham became the father of our faith because he believed God. The Bible says he believed God and God counted it to him as righteousness. He chose to see the opposite of what his circumstances were showing him. You know, that's how it is with God. He'll always come to you and he'll give you the big picture, but it's up to you to let go of your little picture and accept God's big picture. Abraham had to leave barrenness. He had to leave small thinking. He had to leave this little family picture that he had and begin to grasp on and embrace this big family picture that God gave him. And in Genesis 15:6 it says, "And he, Abram, believed in, trusted in, relied on, remained steadfast to the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness," or right standing with God. And here's the thing: God's looking for people that will simply believe what he's trying to show them. And God's picture will always be bigger than the picture that we hold. And I love what Mike Murdoch says. He says, "You'll never rise above the self-image or the current image that you possess." And so in other words, we've got to stretch it. We've got to agree with God. If we don't, we'll allow our own small thinking to diminish our life and keep us stuck in a really small picture for our life. And so I want to ask you this: are you seeing things getting bigger and better? Are you believing God and what he's showing you, or are you believing what the devil's showing you? Are you believing your circumstances? Are you standing in faith when things aren't easy or they look small right now, and believing what God has shown you? Or are you prone to only believing your circumstances? You know, there have been times in my life when the circumstances were screaming at me, you know, this is all you're ever going to have. This is as big as it's going to get. This is as good as it's going to get. And the enemy wants you to believe that. But faith comes along and says, look, I know it's not easy for you to believe this and to see this, but you've got to believe it before you receive it. In Luke 1:37, it says, "For with God nothing is ever impossible, and no word from God shall be without power or impossible of fulfillment." So I want to leave you with this today. Your hardest times, your most lean times, will often lead you to the greatest moments of your life if you will switch yourself from what you see in the natural to what God is trying to show you. And if you'll keep that God picture in your mind, it will be worth it in the end. It will be challenged. The enemy's going to try to get you to take your eyes off of what God showed you and to put them on your circumstances. But if you ever want that picture that God's given you to come to pass, you've got to stay in faith and let faith drown out and diminish the picture of doubt that the enemy is trying to show you. Keep believing God. Refuse to doubt, because you can't see yourself in a small little sad picture and see yourself in the big, awesome, joyful picture that God has for you at the same time. Look at what God has shown you. Do like Abraham did. Refuse to look at barrenness. Refuse to look at smallness. Listen, it won't always make sense, but it's faith that brings the God picture into fulfillment. Faith will cause you to see light in the darkness. Faith will cause you to see the big picture when everything around you is screaming, it will never change. I believe you're going to see your God picture come to pass. There was a quote, and I loved this. It says, you can't see the stars until it's dark. And I just want you to know something. It may be dark all around you right now, but look up. Look up at the stars. God has something bigger and better for you than you could ever think or imagine. But you've got to start to imagine it now. All right? I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Keep that God picture.
It's like you're looking through a telescope. You see where you're going.